Good evening and greetings. I am Justin Alexander, graduate intern for the Wilmington Center for Education Equity and Policy and Delaware State University Educational Leadership doctoral candidate. And my research area of focus is culturally responsive pedagogy. And I welcome all of our students, parents, advocate, educational organization leaders, and all of our wonderful guests to the Wilmington Center for Education Equity's Monday series session titled Speak, Stand, and Get on Board. We seek legislative and policy priorities. This is all about understanding all the important information that goes on outside of the classroom. This is about getting involved with your educational leaders and your senators and all of your district representatives. We are here because the Wilmington WCEEP was created to ensure that Black and brown children living in the city of Wilmington would no longer be harmed by poor educational experiences. The crises our students face today are in a large part a result of the inequities and unresolved injustices carried on their backs for generations. Long before Zoom classrooms, a student's race and zip code have been the predictors of how likely they are to attend preschool, to be taught by teachers who look like them, to graduate or face disciplinary actions and expulsions, be arrested, or enter the criminal justice system. The center emerged from the sustainable efforts of the Wilmington Education Strategies think tank, or better known as WEST. WEST, a group of private citizens, nonprofit executives, parents, and government leaders have been contributing to the education landscape for more than 6 years. And the core strategies are advocacy, research, and community organizing. And some noticeable accomplishments include commissioning research from Eudanomics at Georgetown University that helps substantiate Stark public school financial inequities. This research has helped to inform the formation of Delawareans for Educational Opportunities. And recently, Delawareans for Educational Opportunities negotiated a court-mediated settlement regarding statewide public school funding systems. And in joining us this evening, know that we are here to serve you. We are here to collaborate and connect with you. And this evening, registration is open through our website for our next community organizing training session titled Advocacy 101, this Thursday, April the 29th at 7 p.m., led by Network Delaware. And this evening, I am proud to announce our special guest facilitator, who is an advocate, entrepreneur, organization, and educational leader, Eugene Young, who is the CEO and president of the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League. So everyone come forth with your questions, your comments, ideas, and concerns, because we are here to serve and connect with you. And at this time, everyone, Eugene Young.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Justin, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I want to say, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Justin. Sometimes you got to sing people's praises. Justin is just 6 months away from getting his doctorate in education from DSU. He's doing such an amazing job right now with the work that he's doing with the Wilmington Center. And also, he is a former Gilliam Fellow as well. He was part of our last cohort of fellows. So I just wanted to say how proud I am of him, the work that he's doing. And we're excited about the work that he will continue to do past his 6 months tenure at DSU. But moving forward, I just want to thank you all for being here today. We're going to be touching on a critical aspect of our community, essentially. I tell people all the time, there isn't anything more that impacts their lives, essentially, than what goes on for Delawareans, what goes on down in Dover. Oftentimes, as just Americans and just Delawareans, we think oftentimes that if what happens at the federal level, may that be the presidential election or whoever is the vice president, so on and so forth, that'll have such sweeping changes on our life. When oftentimes we fail to realize that it's those those state legislators, the men and women that go down to Dover between January and June 30th, every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and our governor, one may argue that they have more impact on our lives than a president could ever have or will ever have, for that matter. And so I think it's important for us to be able to connect with legislators, learn what they're doing, and then also, in addition to that, learn how to organize to help support legislators when they're doing the right thing, and B, help keep them accountable when we think that they need to be educated more on certain issues that are going on within the community. So, with that said, one of the things that we're going to do today is we're going to speak with a couple legislators. We're going to learn about how to organize, the importance of legislation. And first, kicking this off, I'm going to bring on the amazing Senate. Excuse me, I was about to say Senator. Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker. Representative Dorsey Walker, as I've known Representative for this has been over a decade. This has been a long time.
About
And
20 years, Eugene.
oh, I was, so it is about 20 years. Yes, it is. Oh my gosh. So yes, about 20 years, 2 decades.
That's right.
But I want to say this, Representative Dorsey Walker she's been in city council. She's actually ran a statewide campaign, so she's going up and down the state, connecting with people on issues. And right now, she serves in the district within Wilmington. And most of her district encompasses, I would say, from like the west side
It's all the West
into
Side.
it's all the west
My
side
district is West
for the
Side.
most part,
Yes.
and it comes into more of your downtown area. But I want to say this: there's not anyone that you can find that is there, right? That is present, and that is connected to the community. There's not that many people that you can say that are more connected from that nature, more than Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker. So I want to say thank you for being here, but I also want to ask for you to provide some insight as we want more people to understand what legislation is out there, what's some of the things that are going on down in Dover, just to like for you to provide insight about HB 198 or and some of the just summarize it, and then also how it impacts Delawareans, regardless of where you may live in Delaware, right?
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I know it's hard to believe that we've been on this journey together for so many years,
Yeah,
but we have. We
we
started
have.
in high school.
Yeah,
We
exactly,
definitely did.
exactly,
Started in
exactly.
high school. We just kept moving. But
Absolutely.
nevertheless, you asked about House Bill 198, and I am proud to prime it in the House and to have Senator Lockman, my partner in the process, my sister in it, as the prime in the Senate. And House Bill 198 adds Black history to the state's curriculum. And we've been working on this legislation for a year. But the most important part about this legislation is our students, members of the Delaware Black Student Coalition, Teen Sharp, young people who are engaged with the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League, and students up and down the state of Delaware, from as far north as Claymont to as far south as Bridgeville, have been at the table from day one, helping to craft this legislation. And I laugh sometimes when we talk about and we think about our babies being at the table. And I've had to have the conversations with them that Mother Ray has had with me about, now you want the legislation to pass. So there's certain language that you want in the legislation so that it's a little more pleasing to the palate to some of your colleagues on the other side and even in your own caucus. And I remember one meeting when the students said, Representative, we want revolution in this legislation. And I said, babies, do we want the legislation to pass? And they said, yes. And I said, well, maybe let's go with resistance versus revolution. And they all laughed, and even the educators who were involved with the process from the beginning. And I would like to say that we've had members of the Department of Education at every single meeting. We've had superintendents attending the meetings. We've had educators attending the meetings, school counselors, and our children. So this is comprehensive. And we've had allies on both sides, and that's the beauty of it.
Mhm.
But our children were very specific about not seeing themselves reflected in the educational process and not feeling like they were a part of it. Now, and some of you attended the education hearing, the House education hearing, which was on March the 31st, where House Bill 198 was voted out of committee, and we shall actually be voting on it on this coming Thursday, April the 29th at 2 p.m. And everyone's welcome to view, to participate, to
Yeah.
pray, do what needs to be done so we can pass the House and I can send it on over to Senator Lockman to get it done over there, and then it becomes law. But our children said something in that meeting, and several of them said they felt oppressed in the classroom. And for everything that's been happening in our nation over the past year, but think about most of our children, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, feeling oppressed in the classroom. And the question was asked, well, how would you not feel oppressed? And the student stated that by seeing myself reflected in the educational process, it would make me feel better about myself. And that's why it's such a need to have House Bill 198 pass the House, pass the Senate, get the governor to sign it, and ultimately become law.
Absolutely.
We also, and you know what, I'll stop there to see if there
Okay.
are any questions.
Okay.
Yes.
And for many, the first question I would ask is for many people who want to support the bill, is what is the best process for them to do so? Is it just going to the next committee meeting, calling their legislator? Just what is the best based on where the bill is now? Because you said it's still on the House side, it still needs to go to be voted
Yes.
in the chamber. So you can call.
Yes.
So it's fair to say you can, no matter where you live, you can call your state representative and
Absolutely.
say you want them to support 198. Correct?
Yes. 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 Reach out to your legislator, email, call, reach out on social media, however you choose to do so. But make sure that your voice is heard regarding House Bill 198. And this
Okay.
isn't, we have so many, when I say we have allies that are engaged with us, we have people in the Jewish faith who have been at the table with us from day one because they see the importance of our children being taught the real history, because Black history is American history. And we have people of all different walks of life who've been involved with this process. So please reach out to your legislators, let them know that this is what we would like to see in this moment.
Got it. Okay. Okay. And I just want to make sure because we got a couple questions in that the bill is to include Black history in K through 12
That is
curriculum.
correct. In the
Got it.
state's
Got it.
curriculum, K through 12. That is
Got it.
correct.
And
Yes.
just one question, a quick question that we have as well. How long has it, like, how long have you been given this idea, or how long have you been working on this bill? Oftentimes, just because a
Year.
bill is in session doesn't mean it just started now. It could have started a
Right.
year, 2, 4, or 5 years ago.
Right.
So, just can you give me that process as to what brought you to this moment?
So it has actually been a year. We have
Okay.
worked on this bill for a year. Our students, actually, what ultimately ended up happening when the Delaware Legislative Black Caucus put forth our Justice for All agenda,
Hmm.
our students wanted their voices heard, and they were clear that they wanted Black history added to the state's curriculum. And the previous council, city council, I believe that was 107th council, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 107th. The council also sent a resolution under then President Hanifa Shabazz, and then the current president, President Trippy Congo, with council members and Shanae Darby, Councilwoman Shanae Darby, helped lead the charge as well, sending a resolution to Dover stating that they support House Bill 198. And on last Wednesday, Senator Lockman, help me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was Wednesday because the days run together. The Red Clay Consolidated School District Board voted unanimously to support the resolution for House Bill 198.
Mm.
So
Wow.
that's quite an accomplishment. And We just have support up and down the state. But again, it's never too late. Please reach out to your legislators because, again, we are voting to add Black history to the state's curriculum from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so
Yes,
much,
it's been a year process. Yes.
Sherry Dorsey Walker, representing the west side of Wilmington, but fighting for curriculum that impacts all
That's
of our
right.
children.
That's right.
So I want to say personally and professionally, and just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for your undying support.
Absolutely. And with that said, I think Representative Dorsey Walker did the best kind of transition that she brought on Senator Lockman. So I
That's
want to
right.
thank you for that as well. And we're going to go to Senator Lockman, another person that I have personally known for it, well over a decade as well.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
a lot,
Yeah.
a little more than a decade.
Yeah, it's been well over a decade as well. And someone that is dearly and closely connected to policy, and also, and I said this before, there's not you don't find often people that what they say out of their mouth, especially when it comes to legislators, what they say out of their mouth is directly in line with what they do with their hands and what they do with their heart and just what they do in general. And I always say that you embody that for me. When you say something, you do it. And when you say you're going to support something, that's how you roll. And so I want to welcome you this evening, and I want to thank you for being here. And I want to now pull up some information as you discussed today, Senate Bill 56. So if you could provide some insight on the importance of Senate Bill 56, what does it mean? You are a state senator, you represent areas, your district is pretty vast, you represent a little bit of the county, west side, so Browntown, Hedgeville, even going down the east side, I believe. Mm-hmm. So you have a pretty large amount, a wide array of individuals, men and women, families that you represent. And so could you please tell us why Senate Bill 56 is so important right now, and why it's so important just for Delawareans, because while you may represent this area of Wilmington, essentially this legislation impacts us all as Delawareans. So can you provide us some insight and updates of Senate Bill 56, please?
Thank you, Eugene. Just wanted to say hi to everybody out there, and thanks for having me. And thank you for the kind words. What you said about me, I see in you, so I appreciate that. And happy to give you a little bit of context for Senate Bill 56. So what Senate Bill 56 does is it codifies or puts into Delaware State Code the opportunity funding, formerly a grant program that the state provided, that Governor Carney initiated several years ago, to add additional flexible to use funds, specifically intended to target our students who come from low-income backgrounds or who are English language learners, who are still learning to be English proficient. And so really what it does is it adds this new layer of funds that can be spent flexibly, funds that can be spent in targeted ways for some of our most vulnerable students in our public schools. And so I think it was alluded to a couple of terms earlier in the conversation. Mm-hmm. One, Delawareans for Educational Opportunity was mentioned, DEO. Mm-hmm. That is an organization that was part of the recent lawsuit against the state seeking equitable funding for students in our public schools, which was recently settled. And that settlement, what that has done is it has several different components to it in terms of what the state agreed to with the plaintiffs, which included DEO and WCEEP, the ACLU. And one component of that is that opportunity funding become permanent. And so mm-hmm. Senate Bill 56 is essentially that step for us as legislators to accomplish that. So what the bill does is it spells out exactly how we're going to proceed from here, in taking the program as it currently exists, where it allocates $500 per English learner student and $300 per low-income student. That is allocated on the district level. from the Department of Education, and the Department of Education essentially solicits planning from the districts to explain how they're going to spend those funds. And then upon review and feedback, those funds are disseminated and then can be spent on those purposes in our classrooms. And so what this bill does is it takes that, makes it permanent in the code, spells out some additional elements, such as what types of things those funds can be spent on, that the department can administer and review those applications that it's going to receive. And what it talks about is that these funds begin to flow in the next fiscal year. So we're going to vote on this into our budget on July 1 of this year. So that means that those monies start to flow in July 1 of next year. And what the bill ultimately does is it gets at exactly what the settlement asked for, which is eventually this opportunity fund pot is going to be $55 million at least in perpetuity. And so then at that point, that $55 million will be divided by the number of low income and EL students based on those ratios that we talked about.
Quick question for you. Quick question. EL students, could you
yes.
Could you give like the definition of what an EL student is?
Sure.
For those that don't know.
English language learner students, or students who are learning to be English proficient. The shorthand that we use in education speak, which I use a lot, I apologize.
It's okay.
ELs. So ELs and LIs for students who come from low income backgrounds. So by 2024, we will have this $55 million divided up to be distributed out to the districts in order to be spent on these special projects. And this has existed for a couple of years now. Obviously, we've had the pandemic has interrupted a little bit in terms of our ability to analyze some of those expenditures. But it's been happening. We've been able to see the types of things that our districts are requesting those resources for, and there is a little analysis around that. But really important, I think, that we make this permanent,
Sure.
a stepping stone to overall having a funding mechanism in the state of Delaware that's going to make sure that the resources that all of our students need are going to be delivered. And we know that students who are coming through the door with some additional challenges, coming from a challenging background or coming in without English proficiency, are going to need to have more resources offered to them in the classroom, and that it's up to us as a state to provide those. And we know in the city of Wilmington, we see a lot of these dynamics, but these are not unique to Wilmington. These are things that in every city, every suburb, every corner of the state. So having this move forward is going to be positive for everyone.
Absolutely. And question I have that actually came from the chat. If a student is an English language learner and low income, is more funding allocated?
Yes. So the way that is that, those go based on the student characteristics. This is sort of a model for that type of student-based funding, which we don't have completely in our system. But so a student who has both characteristics will receive both of those sets of resources because they
Got it.
be successful, right?
Absolutely. And one more question for you from the chat as well. Do charter schools get opportunity funds as well?
Absolutely. Charter schools are public schools, and these monies are intended for our public schools and the types of students that they serve. So a charter school is what we call an LEA. That's another education speak term, and that stands for a local education agency. So you have school districts that are LEAs, and you have charter schools that are LEAs. Broadly speaking, in the way they interact with the Department of Education, they interact as a district. So that applies to charter schools too under this bill.
Absolutely. And two more quick questions. First of all, where is this bill currently in the legislative process? And then how can people, if they want to support it, how can they get involved based upon where it's at? May that be a committee or in the chamber, or where it may be at right now?
Excellent question. So it was introduced by Senator Laura Sturgeon, chair of the Senate Education Committee. And so we ran it through our committee. We introduced it on the Senate floor, and we were able to pass it out of the Senate chamber. And so it went over to the House. I believe it is out of committee.
Okay.
Checking my notes here, and it is on the ready list to go to the floor in the House. So now would be the time to send your emails of support for Senate Bill 56 to all the members of the House. So all of our 42 representatives need to hear from you that you can't wait to see this bill get to the floor, and that they should vote yes and support it.
So essentially now is the moment where you can, because everyone in the state has a representative, everyone has a state in the state has a state senator. So it's already going through the Senate process. So now it is at the House process. So everyone can call their state representative and say, make sure you are supporting this piece of legislation, correct?
Yep.
Got it. And then last question on this. How will the state know if these resources are making an impact? Is there any way to track that? How does that, can you give any insight on that aspect of it?
Sure. No, that's an excellent question that we've definitely considered and talked about. So right now we're really at the stage of analyzing the way that we're spending the funding. So looking at what districts are requesting and seeing the types of items that they are prioritizing. And the department does have a list of recommendations for those expenditures that are, based on evidence-based practices that are generally speaking considered likely to improve outcomes. And we would probably look at, whether or not we're seeing improved achievement in those targeted schools, particularly those ones with really concentrated populations of low-income students, of English learner students. But I think the next logical step, as you've sort of alluded to, would be for us to really look specifically at these allocations and the outcomes that these exact programs are generating. So there's nothing formalized in place for that yet, but I thank you for raising that. And I think that's certainly something that advocates would be welcome to focus on to encourage the department, the districts themselves to be looking at how are they choosing to spend these monies, because they have discretion over that. How confident are they that these are yielding positive results for students? Are they showing better improvement in their standardized tests? Are they showing better attendance? In some cases, is often a great proxy for seeing student improvement. So I think if you want to put some extra oomph behind your advocacy, you could certainly be asking your school districts and your board members, how are they measuring the outcomes from the investments that they're making with opportunity funds?
Sure. Thank you so much for that. And so this is the last question I have for you. I want to know if I know, but I would love for you if you could, because as today we're talking about the legislative process, we're talking about the importance of legislation, we're talking about the importance of advocating for issues that matter to you and your family and your community. Your title as a state senator, above being a state senator, you are the whip. And so can you explain to people what the whip does and why you are the whip? Because I know people, when I first heard whip, I was like, what in the hell does this mean? So can you provide some context, and what does that mean for your role and your position that you're in right now?
Yes, thank you for asking. Yeah, it's a very fun title. I actually have a license plate that says whip on it, which is just like twice the fun. But what it actually means, in terms of the tradition of the role, it's a member of leadership for my caucus. And so for folks, so it takes a few steps to explain. So we have caucuses in each chamber. So in the House chamber and the Senate chamber, we have 2 caucuses each, and that goes based along party lines. So there's a Republican caucus, the minority caucus in our case, and the majority caucus, which in our case is the Democrats right now. Likewise in the House. So each caucus has its own set of leadership, a majority leader and a majority whip, minority leader, minority whip, and then there's one person who leads sort of everyone. And in the case of the Senate, that's our president pro tem. So I'm basically like the co-captain, the vice captain on my caucus team on the majority side. And my role is to help my leadership kind of keep my caucus mates in line. It's about making sure people get to the floor to vote on time, making sure that we all know what bills we're hearing that day and have questions answered and those kinds of things. So if you think about it as like teams, sports teams, it's kind of like captains. And I'm not the captain, but I'm kind of I'm a run below that, helping my captain get all the work done. So that's what whips do. It's a lot of fun. It's been quite an experience learning how to do that this session, and it's an honor to be selected by my peers to serve in that role.
Absolutely. And outside of, and that was my last question for legislative stuff. So a little bit outside of the legislative process, you're also co-chair of the Reading Consortium. And with all transparency, I am a part of the Reading Consortium. I'm a co-chair with Representative Quocha. But the question I have is, what pieces of like interim recommendations or what important things that people need to know about in regards to the Reading recommendations that have thus come to been brought to light, and some things that you see upon the horizon moving forward. I know you and former Attorney General Matt Denn both co-chair Reading, and I just like to before you leave, I'd like to get some just insight on that as well.
Sure, I'll try to be brief because I know I've taken up a lot of time and I could talk about this for hours. But yes, so the Reading Consortium has been hard at work for 18 months, and we in December of last year voted on a set of interim recommendations, which are mostly budget asks that we are taking to the legislature in the hopes of getting them approved as part of the upcoming budget. And it covers a couple of broad areas that I'll touch on briefly, and then I'll tell you all where to find out more details and how to help support our efforts. So we've got a whole set of them talking about some different stuff. But number one, we're looking at focused and comprehensive improvements for the state's highest poverty schools. So we really wanted to make these asks really targeted. And have services for students who are attending or going to attend those schools. And then the other piece is laying the foundation for deep, systemic structural reforms in the future, because we know that inequities come from a deep place, and you can't tinker around the edges and just sort of put little pretty bows on top, right? You've got to really dig in deep, but that takes time. And not wanting to, wait to have the perfect solutions on the deep stuff in place. We have a number of items that we think can move the needle sooner rather than later. And so that includes things like expanding investments in home visitation. So before students are even school age, that we're making sure that families are getting the resources that they need so that students can be hitting their milestones at those young ages and be ready for school. We also have some funding around developmental screenings, making sure that we can enforce that those occur in preschool settings and other types of settings, so that we can catch things early enough so that those who are supporting a child can make sure to do that early enough that they can, again, grow up and be successful in school. We're looking at expansion of preschool seats, so more students can attend high quality full day pre-K at the ages of 3 and 4. And be on a level playing field with their peers who are attending those types of programs outside of our vulnerable communities. And then we're also looking at professional development, really infusing some more investments on what we call whole school professional development, particularly in these particularly high needs schools. And then also more investments in wraparound services. So that's before and after care, that's summer programming, mental health services, and so on and so forth. And then in terms of the broader reforms, we are, I heard you speaking earlier about we really want our students to be able to be taught in environments where they see folks who look like them in every level of the educational experience, certainly in front of the classroom, and being able to deliver relevant, responsive pedagogy. And so we are encouraging investment in what we call grow our own programs. We have teacher academies in our schools, and we want more of our students to grow up to be our teachers, and because we think that will help us have the diverse, high quality workforce that we need. And then last but not least, we have a recommendation around doing more data collection and analysis around race-based inequities, so that we can really know what we all know, but put it on paper, quantify it, and be able to, properly respond to the inequities that we're seeing that are really rooted in racial discrimination and just the structural racism that exists in our schools. So those are some of the big ticket items that we are going to be going to Joint Finance Committee, of which I also happen to be a member, in order to invest in some of these areas and fulfill the interim recommendations of the Reading Consortium. If folks want to weigh in and encourage that the Reading Consortium interim recommendations are funded, you can go onto the legislative website, find out who the members of the Joint Finance Committee are, and email all of us and say, it would be a great idea to fund all those Reading Consortium recommendations. And you can also, to learn more, go to our website, which is Solutions for Delaware Schools, all written out, .com, and you can read more about the interim recommendations. You can also type Reading Consortium for Educational Equity in on Facebook, and you'll find our Facebook page. You'll see a lot of great testimonial videos from our allies and supporters, and you could contribute one as well if that's something you'd be interested in doing. So we'd really just encourage people to follow us on Facebook, visit the website, read more, and reach out to decision makers to encourage that we fund all of those recommendations this year.
Wow, a lot going on. So I want to thank you, and I also would be remiss if it was not said that you are one of the original architects of the center, because you were one of the first people at the table with West, the Wilmington Education Strategic Think Tank.
Yes.
So, yep, and so you have very close ties to the center. So we thank you so much. We thank you for the work that you're doing in the Senate. Please keep it up, and please let us know how we can be more involved, engaged along in this process. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
All right. See you later. Thank you. And now I'm back here with my main man, Justin. So far, so good, right?
So far, so good. It's truly been amazing. And just listening to our Senator Lockman and Representative Walker just letting us know there is so much work to be done, but we all have the knowledge and capacity to get into these places and really let our voices be heard, and we have the ability to do the work and truly make transformational change. So this has truly been impactful. It's going great. It's going great.
I like that, my friend. So one thing I want to make sure that we do, we put out a note for everyone. Please make sure that you vote on May 11th. Those are our school board elections. We cannot talk about participating in the process and finding ways to be involved and engaged without saying that you need to make sure that you vote for in your local school board elections. Once again, that's on May 11th. May 11th. You don't have to have a child in school to vote. All you have to do is just show up to your local polling place. You should be good to go. You don't have to, it's not worried about what you're registered as. These are school board elections. You just go and you vote. So please make sure to do that. I want to thank our two representatives, our representative and our state senator, Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker, and also Senator Tizzy Lockman for their time in helping us along with this. And now seems like, Justin, we're going to be pivoting a little bit into a different area. And so we're going to be speaking with two incredible people about organizing, but more importantly, like the legislative process, how to get involved, engaged. But in order to like kick everything off, we are going to go to one of my favorite videos or songs. It's the inner nerd in me, but I think this kind of dovetails into what we're going to be talking about next. Jonathan from Flux Creative, he's actually behind the scenes. I'm going to ask him if he could put the link in, and then we'll start the phase 2 of our programming tonight. So here we go. Let me see.
As your body grows bigger,
your mind must flower.
It's great to learn,
'cause knowledge is power.
It's Schoolhouse Rocky, the chip off the block of your favorite Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a Bill.
Whew, you sure gotta climb a lot of steps to get to this Capitol building here in Washington. Well, I wonder who that sad little scrap of paper is.
I'm just a Bill. Yes, I'm only a Bill. and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee, but I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will, but today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called their local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." Then he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. And I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law. I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill, and I got as far as Capitol Hill. Well, now I'm stuck in committee, and I'll sit here and wait while a few key congressmen discuss and debate whether they should let me be a law. I hope and pray that they will, but today I am still just a bill.
Listen to those congressmen arguing. Is all that discussion and debate about you?
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones. Most bills never even get this far. I hope they decide to report on me favorably, otherwise I may die.
Die?
Yeah, die in committee. Oh, but it looks like I'm gonna live. Now I go to the House of Representatives and they vote on me.
If they vote yes, what happens?
Then I go to the Senate and the whole thing starts all over again.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And if they vote for me on Capitol Hill, well, then I'm off to the White House where I'll wait in a line with a lot of other bills for the president to sign. And if he signs me, then I'll be a law. How I hope and pray that he will. But today I am still just a bill.
You mean even if the whole Congress says you should be a law, the president can still say no?
Yes, that's called a veto. If the president vetoes me, I have to go back to Congress and they vote on me again, and by that time you're so
By
old,
that time, it's very unlikely that you become a law. It's not easy to become a law, is it?
No, but how I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
He signed your bill. Now you're a law.
Oh, yes.
Don't you guys love that? That is one of my favorites.
Yes.
I was just thinking when I first saw that in grade school, and I was like, that has always stuck with me. And when you were
Oh, my
talking, I was
God.
thinking, is it the Bill song? And then watching it, it really brought back fun memories, and it's always stuck with me.
It
About the
always,
importance
I'm
of
just a
bills.
bill. Yeah, I'm just a bill. But it details the process. I mean, it really like dives into the specific process of how a bill
It
becomes
does.
law, which I think is so very important. Which kind of dovetails us into these two amazing people that we have with us today. We have our first start, ladies first. I'll start with Ms. Ty Greer. Ty is an organizer based in the Dover area. Has been doing a ton of organizing. I call it the organizing extraordinaire. Very much connected with community and people. We're so thankful to have her. She does organizing with the Urban League and also Network Delaware in her Tobacco-Free Kids campaign, in particular with Network Delaware. So thank you so much, Ty, for being here. Give her a round of applause. Absolutely.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And now we're going to go to my main man, Drew Series. I have Drew was in full transparency. Drew was my campaign manager. It feels like eons ago. He is someone who's deeply committed to the cause and fighting for those who are at the margins. I'm just thankful to know him. I consider him a friend. And he's also the executive director, one of the co-founders of Network Delaware. Full transparency, I'm the board chair. So I want to welcome Drew Series here as well. Please, everyone, give it absolutely a round of applause for Mr. Drew Series. So we are going to take our baton of our bill, essentially, and pass it off to you guys to talk about the importance of the legislative process, and going into how people can get involved and engaged as we take the video, but how do people get involved and engaged, and describe more about that process, if that makes sense, guys.
It absolutely does. Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction, Eugene and Justin. And I'm going to start by giving us a quote from FDR. Okay, you've convinced me. Now go out there and bring pressure on me. So, Drew, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we're going to start with keys to make people successful at advocating and influencing their decision makers.
Cool. All right. Well, excited to be here. So, building off of Ty, we have some key points, and a lot of this, for those of you who signed up, we'll have this written up, a document to share with all of you. If you want to, make sure to leave a comment if you haven't signed up, so we can get that information to you. But another thing that's really important when thinking about how do you work with the legislators, how do you influence them, part of it's building power for your side and the things you're fighting for. So, it can be like encouragement. Hey, we've got your back. If you vote for this, we know, there's lots of people on both sides, but you need to bring your people to show up and make sure they know you're there to support them. Turn the next one over to Ty.
All right. Yes, because it's very important to both bring, we want to make sure we support them, and we want to persuade our decision makers, and we want to bring a broader coalition of support. So we also have to remember that it's really, or perceived power is key to moving decision makers. So when we bring our supporters with or more people to them, then it's not just enough to convince a decision maker. You want them to be on the right side of history.
And then next, a lot of times, we've got a range of legislators out there. All of them are considering different things. So you've got, their neighbors, friends, community, you've got fact sheets, lobbyists, a whole bunch of different constituencies talking to them. So remember, you want to also bring your stories as well. It's hard, like if you bring 20 different data points, sometimes that story from the district is more impactful. So, and then turn it over to Ty.
Again, I think it's also very important that you develop a respectful relationship with them, preferably before you need something. Remember, they're people too. So we want to make sure that they know that you're not just here because you want something, but you're here because you respect their position and you want to have a relationship with them. Back to
you. And then if, let's say you are trying to pass a bill, and let's say you've got one person who's kind of undecided, and that one vote is what you need, consider how you can build multiple forms of pressure on that legislator. A lot of times people say, oh, we'll have a rally or protest, or we'll just, have folks sign a petition. Those are all fine and depend on the situation. But we want to make sure, are you getting other coalition partners? And are you arranged? Is it faith groups, community groups, youth groups? Are you talking to different media outlets, social media, traditional media? Like there's lots of ways. The point of this is, use all the tools in your toolbox and talk to, when there's a bill sponsor, work with them and others who support the bill to get their thoughts on how to best build good pressure for the bills you're fighting for.
Yes.
Cool. All right, so what we're going to go into now is that piece what Ty was talking about, how to build a good relationship with your legislator. A lot of you maybe have know a few legislators, but maybe there's others you could know even better. So if you've never done that before, or if you want to teach someone, maybe you know it really well, but maybe our challenge to you would be teach one other person who's going to be in this case, who's going to be the next Ty. Now Ty's learned that. So how do you do that? So I'll start with the first one. So the first one is, like Ty said, treat decision makers like real people. So, you can't just you know, always say like, I must see this. You know, have a conversation, see what their thoughts and ideas are, share your own. Attend if you haven't already, attend some of those public meetings. I mean, right now it's a lot easier digitally, so you can, you know, attend any. You don't have to travel. For sometimes it might be a little bit more challenging if that's the General Assembly and you have to leave work. But in some other cases, maybe school board, our city or county council, those will be in the evenings. Hopefully, everything continues to see some form of digital. So we'll see how that goes. And I would say another really important thing is just ask to talk to them. If you can't go down, whether the legislators we had on earlier, Representative Dorsey Walker, Senator Lockman, you know, they're always available. There's lots of other legislators who are available. If you just ask, say, hey, I would love to, you know, learn more about what you're fighting for, share what I'm concerned about. You know, many of them are available to talk. You know, maybe right now you can't meet in person, but having a phone call or when things change, then a meeting in person. Legislators are a lot of times very responsive. And then one last thing I just want to note, make sure to thank and acknowledge them. So, you know, when they vote for bills, you know, it's helpful for them to know like you supported them, especially if it's a tough bill that had lots of controversy. You want them to know, hey, that was great. I know that was a tough stand. Really appreciate you doing that. So now, so since we're not all in person in a room doing this training, normally we'd have folks breaking out. So one thing, just for yourself, if you've never had to convince a legislator, just think for yourself. Will take like 15 seconds, just a silent reflection, or 20 seconds. When someone is trying to convince you, what works best? So just think for yourself, or if you have a family member, what works to convince them? And are you doing that when you're trying to convince legislators? So just think about that for a sec. If someone was trying to convince you, what would they need to do? So important to remember, you know, whatever worked for you, you know, may not work for every other person, but kind of expand your thinking on what works to convince folks. It's not always just, you know, one certain method. You might have to talk to multiple people to get a good idea on that. So cool. For time, I'm gonna. Oh, perfect. Wow, so fancy. So,
Yes.
Ty, do you want me to go on to do the activity, or did we want to show folks how to find their legislator? I know.
Let me see.
I saw you posted in our chat, so
Yes, I don't know how to post the other one. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Don't mind me.
So for folks who have never contacted their legislator, oh, there it is. So, oh, Ty, you got it. So,
All right. So step one is we have to find out who our legislators are. So the website, they're https://legis, legis.delaware.gov/. That is the way we type. When you hit that link, you put in your address and it will pull up all your legislators for you. Step one. Now you know who your legislators are, and now it's time to influence them.
all right. So now we're gonna just and Jonathan, when your amazing self is ready, we're ready for that graphic. We're gonna just walk through that process a little more. You heard the "I'm just a bill," and so here we're gonna just cover. We'll also email this out so you can get a more close-up version of this graphic. But just kind of walk you. There's three main stages to think about for a bill. there's there's a lot of different more steps than that, but just three main things to think about. So stage one is that drafting and committee vote stage. So a lot of times, so legislators are working to address challenges. So they'll have an idea or work with constituents or community groups to try and tackle an issue. So that bill is written and it's in the House or Senate. It can start in either place in general. And then a bill is always assigned to a committee. And normally that committee kind of relates to what the bill's topic. So if it's a health related bill, it'll go to the health committee. And so then the bill will get a public hearing where people can go give public comment and share their voice and concerns. And then that's where the first real test. All that tends to happen for all bills. Then the next part is where things start to vary. So a bill has to receive a majority votes to be released from committee. So if it doesn't get a majority of votes to say this bill should be released, then it's, they say stuck in committee. So you need to get more support for that bill. But if it's released, then this is where we go to stage two, where it gets a floor vote or not. So that the House or Senate leadership will decide if and when that bill will get a vote. Not every bill gets a vote. So I know when I was first thinking, I thought, oh, okay, it's released from committee, every bill gets a vote. That's not always the case. There's lots of reasons why a bill may not get a vote. Maybe we won't get into all the reasons right now, but basically maybe it doesn't have enough support, or maybe it's going to be talked about at another point. Once it does get a floor vote, though, it has to get the required number of votes to pass, which is different for different types of bills. So generally, it's a majority of votes, but sometimes it may be 3/4 if it has to do with changing, taxes or revenue, or it may need 2/3 vote for constitutional changes. So the different bills will need different amounts of support. Once that bill gets out of what is passed, let's say it passes in the House, then it gets sent over to the Senate. If it passes in the Senate, then it goes to the House. And then it goes through that same process we just talked about. It gets assigned in a committee, has to get voted out in committee, and then has to get decided if it's going to be voted on the floor. So if you pass all those steps and it passes both the House and then the Senate, then it goes to the governor, who can either sign the bill into law or veto the bill. Generally, if the bill makes it to the governor, most times it gets signed, but there's a fair number of times where a governor will veto a bill for a lot of different reasons. In general, though, if the governor vetoes a bill, it generally, even though there is a process for the General Assembly to override the bill, that's very rare. So generally, you're going to need the governor's support to pass a bill. And then once it's signed, it's passed into law and goes into effect on whenever the date of that bill. So, cool. So I think that's good for that graphic. So that's kind of a quick summary of how a bill becomes law. And now we're going to kind of practice supporting one of the bills you heard about tonight. So I think we're going to be doing focusing on HB 198, Representative Dorsey Walker's bill that she's the prime sponsor for, and you heard about earlier in the evening. So what we're going to do first, we're going to, if you've never sent a message to your legislator, we've got a little template we're going to show up on the screen, just a very simple template. Perfect. So this is like a very simple message any of you can send on to your legislators. I'm just going to walk through some key pieces for this, just so legislators get lots of messages. If you've seen any of those online petitions, like where you put your name and sign, like Sometimes those will they get a lot of them, so they're not always sure what's a real or not. So those are still important to do. But if you take a little bit more time to send them an email, all their emails are available on the General Assembly's website. So one thing you would do is you would say which bill you specifically support. In this case, HB 198. Write that brief sentence, what's it's about, because as you can see, this is HB 198. There's a lot of bills the legislators here, so sometimes they need to get reminded which one is which. And then really important, this gets forgotten about a lot. Say you're a constituent. If they don't, just to remind them you live in their district, a lot of times they're not sure if constituents live in their district or not. So it's really important to share you live there. And then next, I support this bill because of X. Why do you specifically support it? So this, can be short or long, but it's mainly a personal story of why you support. And I see some folks in the chat for phone calls. Phone calls work the same way. You want to share the same information, just share about the bill. If you get it, let's say you'll generally talk to their legislative aide, or you'll leave a message. Legislators do keep track of how many calls in support or opposition to a bill they get. So it really does matter. Like, there is a tracker for that. So make sure to, remember to say you're in the district and where you're at, so they know that you're there, and sharing your brief reason. All right, I'm just checking to see. All right. Ty, did I miss anything?
Oh, looks like you covered everything. Awesome.
So this was kind of our brief summary. I know we'll be just a plug for Thursday. There's more trainings. I know we'll have Justin, I think, is going to talk more about this, but we'll be doing a deeper dive into this. So we'll be having breakout rooms and more times deeper discussions. So we'll look forward to seeing you more to work even more bills that you want to support. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ty and Drew. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And sometimes we may not even recognize just, those tips and recommendations, and just, building that professional rapport that you all talked about. We may not realize just how important that is. Sending off that email, sending that telephone response, or initiating that first point of contact is so important. And as our Representative Walker and Senator Lockman and Eugene touched on, just really understanding that we have a lot of power, and making sure that everyone in legislative seats know what's going on in our communities, what's going on in our schools, what's going on, in our personal and professional lives that affect, our children's education. So everything you touched on is very, very needed. It's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even I would piggyback off of Justin and say, I think what I liked the most about the presentation was, you went back over the whole process, because I think it's very important that people know how important a small committee meeting is, right? In the grand scheme of things. And also I love how you brought up the line, what would someone need to do to convince you to do something? And I think thinking about it from that perspective is critical and important, because it allows you to kind of put yourself in someone else's shoes, and it teaches you kind of how to engage with others, right? Kind of goes back to that book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So this is really, really insightful. And I can't thank Ty and Drew. I cannot thank you both enough. So I really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us.
Fantastic. So thank you so much, you guys. And we're about to, I guess, Justin, our job now is to close this thing out. How about that?
Yes.
Well, I'll just jump on real quick and just say, that I know Kim Williams, State Representative Kim Williams, is going to be having some follow-up information for many individuals. She wasn't able to come on today, but there's certain things that she wants to speak about in the future. And also from everything from teacher residency programs and funding it from K through third grade. We will have her on in the future. So I just want to give a heads up for that, just to put that note out there. And I want to thank everyone that has come on, from Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker, HB 198, Senator Tizzy Lockman, SB 56, and also Ty and Drew, and also it's good being on here with you, my friend.
Yes, likewise, it really is. And to all of our attendees here, know that WCEEP, the Wilmington Center for Education, Equity, and Policy, we are here to serve. We're here with all of our collaborative partners, the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League, Network Delaware, and as Eugene said, Senator Lockman and Representative Walker. We are here. We are available through our website, www.wilmingtoneducationequity.com. You can register for our future events, our next training session of Community Mobilizing Advocacy 101 this Thursday, April the 29th at 7 p.m., as well as May the 24th, which will be our next session, Restorative Practices, curated by Shannon Griffin, featuring author Dr. Abdul Malik Muhammad. So please register. We want to hear from you all. We want you all to join us, because this is about understanding the perceptions that our Black and brown school children live with every day outside of the school systems and inside the classroom. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear from your children's personal experiences, because we're here to advocate. We're here to fight for social justice alongside of you. So CEEP is always available. So please reach out to us and know that we are here to support you. And to everyone, and I know Eugene follows up with this, continue to be the transformational leaders that our students need, because change, it begins with us. We have the power, and that's what all of our guest speakers have been telling us this evening. So everyone stay safe and know that CEEP is here to advocate and support for you all.
Absolutely. Better words can be said. Make sure you vote May 11th. Upcoming school board elections. Those elections have so much impact on our children's futures. Once again, vote May 11th. In your local school board elections, all you need to do is just go. You don't have to be a registered voter. You just need to go. You show up and you are able to vote. It's even less requirements as a normal electoral election for an elected seat for in state government. It's a little bit different. So it's May 11th. Make sure you show up. Make sure you vote. Make sure your voice your voice counts on behalf of the children that are going to be impacted by the May 11th vote. So you have to show an ID to verify residency. You do have to do it. You have to have some form of identification to verify residency, but you do not have to be registered as a voter. You just need to show ID to verify residency. So thank you all so much. Justin, it's cool hanging out with you.
Yes, sir. Likewise.
Indeed, my friend. And in the words of Frederick Douglass, you don't get everything you fight for, but you got to fight for everything you get.
Yes.
We look forward to continuing that fight with you all for what's most important, our children and our future. So thank you all so much. I wish you a wonderful evening.
Have a wonderful evening.